Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Nnaemeka Onyeka, Obiaraeri. I just saw a news clip. Federal government of Nigeria moves to curb movement of health workers. Does this make sense? All over the world, you can't adopt unlawful measures or whatever measures to stop migration of goods and services to lawful climes based on freedom of will and choice of people. Any man or woman who is educated can choose to work in any environment, can wish to sell his lawful goods and services to any client that he or she deems fit. Sometimes I wonder how those who purport to govern us, how they reason. All over the world, especially in developing economies, developing countries, some of them have actually taking urgent steps to ramp up, to drive STEM education, sciences, technologies, engineering, and mathematics. We know that Nigerian medical professionals are well sought after globally, from the UK to Canada to America to South Africa to other parts of the world, even to Saudi Arabia. Nigeria medical professionals are well sought after. Any right-thinking government across the three tiers and arms of government will have been putting in place policies and measures to provide adequate funding for education, especially on the STEM area, across board. UNESCO standard is very clear on what the volume of funding should be for education. Look at the federal government budget, recently passed budget of 28.7 trillion. What they are allocated to education is less than 2%. I don't even think it's up to 2%. The only states in Nigeria that provided some huge chunk of their allocation for education and health, which is social investment, are Delta State, Abia, and Enugu State. Abia State elects to be a first-time governor. His first budget, he allocated 40% to education and health. And he's even promising to increase the numbers to 50% by the next budget session, because he just knew he needs to tighten up the leakages and then ramp up revenues. Currently, Abia State is expected to raise about 160 billion by way of revenue. And the LX knows that by the time the critical infrastructures are put in place, by the time he provides the basics for investments and investors to come into state, he can actually ramp up that revenue times 3. We expect governments in Nigeria across the three tiers and three arms of government to put in place diverse measures, private-public partnership measures, wholly public-funded measures to ramp up STEM education in Nigeria. If, for example, we know that Nigerian doctors, Nigerian nurses, Nigerian coders, Nigerian computer scientists are well sought after, what are the governments across the three tiers of government doing in practical terms to provide massive funding and support for the education and health sector in Nigeria? In a government, in a nation where people are thinking futuristic, I say it with every sense of responsibility. The greatest export of Nigeria are our diasporas. Our diasporans can actually inflow $100 billion annually into this economy. And since we know that our diasporans is not just enough to stifle or do all manner of games like the Nigerian Medical Council was trying to do, to put on all manner of levies to discourage people from traveling out. What you do is you produce more. In fact, we should have in every local government area in Nigeria very world-class school of midwifery and nursing, where we will train and bring out the best and even help them to export them. If we need 1 million health workers in Nigeria, hypothetically, common sense requires that we should put in place measures to train at least 2 million, so that we can actually export 1 million out and still have enough 1 million. And who even told us that those that were exporting will not come back? Those that were exporting will go and acquire knowledge, some of the knowledge that are absent here, and they will come back and reinvest here, put the critical new skills that they have acquired and their monies. Look at China. In 1980, China was such a very poor nation that they had almost about 769 million poor people in China. The literacy level in China as at 1980 was about 60%, 62% thereabout. The Chinese government deliberately embarked on a program to educate their people. And after giving them basic education, they shipped most of them to America, to Europe, to acquire knowledge, to acquire technology, to acquire the knowledge of science and technology, and to come back home. Between 1980 to 2005, China was able, through this deliberate program, they exited over 700 million people from extreme poverty. Knowledge is power. My people perish for lack of knowledge. The greatest key to liberating somebody from poverty is sound and solid education. Acquisition of knowledge and skills helps people to be liberated from poverty and nothing more. China in 15-25 years exited 700 million people from poverty. Today, China is one of the leading, if not the leading country in terms of 5G technology, in terms of chips production. They traveled, they went to Harvard, they sent them to IMT, they sent them to some of the best schools, they sent them to Imperial College, to Cambridge. And these guys acquired the best of knowledge, even stole technology, and they went back home. I remember in the 80s and the 90s, people would tell you, oh, don't buy Taiwanese goods, don't buy Chinese goods, they are inferior. Today, China and Taiwan are marching toe to toe with the best of technology the West can provide. Korea did the same thing. South Korea in the early 60s, Singapore in the early 60s, we are very, very far behind Nigeria. In fact, Singapore, as at 1965, had literacy level of 57%. Today, their literacy level is 98%. China has literacy level of today 98%, up from 62% in 1980. Singapore in 1965 had more illiterates than Nigeria. Their GDP per capita was far lower than that of Nigeria. Today, their GDP per capita is actually competing among the top 4 or 5 in the whole world, because they prioritize education and invested in education and health. You can hardly see any Chinese leader leaving China to go to any part of the world for health tourism. You can hardly see any Singaporean or Malaysian leader leaving Malaysia and Singapore. You have people who claim to have created and made states. 24 years, they could not build one single hospital that could attend to their health needs. They are still junketing around the whole world, moving from France to Middle East, to London, to America. Buhari wasted 8 years without building one medical center that could cater for his health. Even his ear problem was treated in UK. Does this make sense? In a country where we have people who are altruistic, who are patriotic, who are sincere, who are honest, there should be a Marshall Plan. Their Marshall Plan should be, how do we ramp up massive investment, put in place 40% of the budget on social investment, health, and education, and then ramp up. In fact, those monies will actually be seed fund to ramp up massive private-public partnership arrangement. I give an example in the health sector. There is no state in Nigeria that should not have a world-class medical center comparable to what we have in India, the Apollo Hospital Group. We have a lot of medical professionals of Nigeria origin who went abroad. We have a lot of medical equipment suppliers like the likes of Esmed Tel Aviv, who understand the size and the huge market in Nigeria, that are willing to partner with the government to turn some of the public health institutions, or even build new ones, in a way that those who are of the upper echelon, those who are of the higher class, those who belong to the higher ladder of the socio-economic pyramid, are charged well, and those who are of the lower cadre, the aged ones from 65 and above, and the younger ones from 10 and below, and receive free medical care. You will see people coming from other parts of the whole world, Africa, to come to Nigeria for medical tourism. There used to be a time people come from other parts of the world to come and school in the University of Ibadan, Nsukka, Ife, and other places. Why are we not having an influx of foreigners coming to Nigeria? Because the quality of our education has tanked, and we need to revive it. We shall know this truth, though, and it's not just enough putting in place some criminal public policies to stop people from migrating out. Anybody that wants to migrate, that has the knowledge and can be employed to work in America, should be allowed to go. What we should be doing and thinking about and putting programs in place is to provide 40% of all our national expenditures as even seed fund to attract diverse design, build and operate PPP frameworks to build up our health and education sector. Our university should be ranked among the top 100 in the whole world. Are you aware there is a year university research report that clearly spelled out that of some of the 6 smartest ethnic nations in the whole world, the Yoruba nation and the Igbo nation was among the 6. It's a result by 2 professors at Yale. So we have some of our brightest minds, some of our people go to Europe, go to American universities, and they break records. And yet we cannot create partnership with some of those schools like they have in Malaysia and Indonesia to build up our education and health sector here in Nigeria to compete favorably with the best in the whole world. Go to United Arab Emirates. Practically, the Indian population in UAE is even more than the local population. The local population of Emirates is actually lower than the Indian population there. Go to Wall Street. Most of the Fortune 500 companies, the CEOs are Indians. India has school of technology that competes with even MIT. So if we know we have a huge population, in fact we have a youthful population that is more than 70% of our population, that we can actually provide sound and solid education, map up, let education, and in fact our greatest investment should be in education and health, rather than putting in place criminal measures to stop people from going out to go and see greener pastures. Come on, we know what the right things to do. Let's do the right thing and stop chasing shadows. God bless us.